Hello designers. We're ready to start our very last challenging unit, which is on illustration. It's going to require a lot of understanding of the pen tool and lots of the other drawing tools. So this is a review of the pen tool. And rather than showing it to you with a random lesson, instead I thought I would show you how you're going to be using it with your simple illustration, your layered illustration that I've presented to you in class. So as I told you, we start first with a drawing. Your drawing is going to be between 3 and 5 colors. This is my drawing that you see here of my moth. I've got 3 different colors. I've got a dark and a light green and then a black. We've scanned it in and we've placed it in here. I'm going to use this to trace. The reason we're tracing is we're trying to get 3 layers. So as you can see here, I've got a black layer. I have got a dark green layer. Notice it stacks on top. It's letting that black show through. And finally, I have a light green layer. That's what's closest to me. That's how this is going to work with the wood. We're literally going to spray them and they get stacked. So notice that these have negative space. You have to think about what is going to be the furthest from you. So in this case, I'm thinking about the way a moth is. The body is overlapped by these wings and then finally these wings. It just makes it easier to think about what is furthest from you, what is closest. And if you need help with that, let me know and I can help you, okay? Because when these are done, they do need to stack. So I'm going to show you several shortcuts, some quick tricks that you can use going forward. Okay, so we're going to start first by opening up that template. I'm going to have you use my scan before you start with your image. So you're going to go to Courses, Art, Print Shop, Illustrator Lessons, and there should be a file called Pen Tool Review, and I want you to click Open to that. Okay, so as you can see here, we have my drawing. You're going to practice right along with me. The first thing that we need to do, and you'll do this when you get your drawing done and scanned, is you need to lock this so we don't accidentally keep grabbing onto it. So with our selection tool, we click on it and we go to Object, Lock, Selection. That's something that you need to get used to doing. It just helps with this. The easiest way to do this is to think about you just have to trace all of your lines. And even in that, I'm going to show you a couple easy tricks that you can use. We're going to start first by tracing this first big black center area because it's the most complex. And I'm going to show you sometimes when you have a complex shape like this, you want to break it down into smaller shapes. So for me, I see this as 2 different shapes and 1 here. So we're going to do a lot of little shortcuts. Things are like, oh yeah, I didn't even think to do it that way. That makes it a lot easier. So now that we've got it locked, we need to grab our pen tool. And we want to make sure that we don't have a fill because that's going to make it hard to trace if it's filling as we go. And we want to pick a contrasting stroke. So I'm going to pick a nice hot pink because that's going to be a very contrasting color to my green. And then I'm going to set the stroke to 3. So stop the video, lock the photo or lock the scan, no fill, pink stroke set at 3. All right, now that we've done that, let's zoom in so that we can see the shape a little bit better. We're going to just focus on this shape here. Drawing with the pen tool is not easy. I get it. I'm going to review with you here. So remember that drawing with the pen tool is setting points. You're connecting the dots. If you simply click, it's going to create straight lines. Well, we don't. Most of our shapes are going to be curved. So that means you're going to be clicking and dragging to set the direction of the point. So you can watch me do this first and then follow along, which is probably the best, or do it as I go. But I'm going to start here. I'm going to click and drag. And all I'm doing, so I'm not drawing a line. I'm just setting an anchor point. I'm telling the computer which way is this line going to go. So the easiest way to think about this is you want to click and drag right along the line that you want it to go. So literally, if you watch my mouse, you can see I'm clicking and dragging. Don't worry about the blue line. Just look at where my pointer is. Okay, so notice I don't have anything here. It's curving this direction. You can use as many points as you want to, but anytime it kind of shifts and changes direction, even the slightest, I'm going to set another point and I'm going to click. Now the further I drag that out, now you can kind of see the line. This is the line that's getting drawn. Your handlebars, how you click and drag is going to change. Don't worry if you're like, oh, it's not right on. I got it. It's off. It's fine. We'll fix it. Okay. So now I'm going to continue dragging. Okay. So now I'm going to click and pull that up. Now, here's the problem. This is a sudden change. None of this was a sudden change. This is a sudden change in direction. Think of it like driving a car. We're just steering. That's all we're doing here. If I don't put on the brakes here, if I just all of a sudden turn the wheel, I'm going to flip my car. I don't want to do that. So you have to apply the brakes. So what the brake is, it's the Alt key. Because otherwise, right now, I'm still turning this direction. I'm going to hold down the Alt key. Notice it changes the cursor. What it's doing is it's applying the brake. I need to go to my last anchor point, and I'm just going to click. Now I'm holding down my mouse button. I'm going to release the Alt key. I'm releasing the brake, and now I'm dragging, which is I'm turning the steering wheel again. Okay? So now notice it's curving this way. I'm going to set another point here, clicking and dragging, and then finally I'm going to click one last one to close that. All right? So now if you want to stop the video, try to outline this little shape here. All right, excellent. Now that you've done that, we're going to fine tune this. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit more. It's easier to just create your shape and then fine tune. You fine tune by grabbing this, which is our direct selection tool. And if you click on the anchor points, it will kind of activate them, so it'll bring the handlebars back up. You can move it wherever you need to. You can basically steer the car after you're done. You can move the anchor points in and out. That's going to be the amount or the severity of the curve. If I feel like I need to add more anchor points, like I feel like I need another one right here, just grab your pen tool and you can add more points. You'll see you'll get a little plus sign. So I can add as many as I want to. If I feel like I need to subtract with the pen tool, if I hover on a point, it's going to subtract it. So I can subtract. All right. Once you have a perfect selection, this is where I'm going to show you. It's about working smarter, not harder. I have another one of these shapes over here. Guess what, guys? I'm just going to make a copy. So I'm going to grab my selection tool. I'm going to click and drag. And I'm just going to rotate that thing. All I did was I drug that anchor point across. I can even rotate it a little bit. Because I'm doing something that's symmetrical. So look for those instances where you can simply make copies, right? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these shapes together, right? All right. So then the last thing I got to do here is I've got to do the center part of the body. One thing that you're going to want to do when you're dealing with multiple lines is you're going to want to lock things a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click these two. You don't have to do this if you want to. I suggest you do, but I'm just going to lock those as well. Excuse me, hiccups. And now I need to trace this center black line. So I'm going to trace it. I'm going to stop the video here and you're going to come back and you're going to see that I have that traced. All right, so I've traced my center part here. Remember, you can fine tune it. I'm just going to speed through for the sake of speed and efficiency. But we need to unlock those other two shapes. These two pinks, we need to unlock them. So I'm going to unlock all. Now I do need to relock that background. So I'm going to click on my space here. I do want to lock that drawing in place. But now I'm going to fill these things. So I'm going to fill them black with no stroke. Oops, wrong way. And now remember I said we're going to work smarter, not harder. Because this was a complex shape, it was easier to trace them as three separate shapes. And now we're gonna add them together. How do you do that? Well, you select all three, you grab that shape builder tool, and now you just click and drag. Guess what? Now we've got one shape. Made it way easier, right? Excellent. Okay, so next thing you're gonna do is I want you to, you can move this out of the way, but I want you to trace your other three black shapes. All right, welcome back. So you've got this shape here, we've got this shape here, we've got this one and this one. Oops, forgot to fill that one. If you didn't fill them solid black, please do that. Notice I don't have anything done on this side, I'm only doing my shapes, right? So we've got these three black shapes. Next thing we're gonna do is now we're going to do all of the other lines. You can leave these here if you want to, it's up to you. If you do, I would suggest locking them, if that makes things easier for you. Otherwise, Go ahead, and now the next thing I want you to trace is I want you to trace the dark green lines. I might have failed to say, only on the right side. Don't do the left, we're only doing the right. Okay, so now you see I've got my 3 dark green shapes traced. The last thing we're gonna do is you do need to trace this lime green and your circle lime green here. Before we do that, let's again think smarter, not harder. If I wanted to do a circle, I'm not going to waste my time with the pen tool on this. That's just silly. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my elliptical marquee tool. I'm going to go to the approximate center. I'm going to draw my circle outward from the center. This is a review. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key, which allows me to draw the circle from the center, and I'm going to hold down the Shift at the same time, which is going to make it a perfect circle. Okay? So notice I've got that there. And then the last thing, again, make sure that you are tracing that large outside shape here. Okay, so we've got all of our lines traced on the right hand side. Let's go ahead and we're going to fill these things. So just to make it easier for ourselves, so I'm going to click on this shape here and I'm going to fill it with the light green. Oops. I do want to send that backward underneath the other ones. Oh, my goodness. Okay, hopefully you were able to get all of your different objects successfully filled and stacked. Again, if you have issues or you struggle with this, call me over. You may have to lock and unlock this background drawing. You may have to change the arrangement. Just make sure that it looks similar to mine. Now, again, remember, mantra for this lesson is work smarter, not harder. Why we only did one side is because it's just easier to make a copy. It looks identical on the other side. So think about those times that you can use shortcuts and make copies of things rather than doing everything from scratch. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to move this for just a second so I don't accidentally grab it. I'm going to select all of the objects here. I'm going to hold down my Alt key and I'm going to make a copy. Now I can try to flip this manually, or I can use the transformation panel. So I'm going to go up to Window, Transform, and in the drop down menu we're simply going to click Flip Horizontal. So now you can see here I've got a perfectly symmetrical second wing. I'm going to grab my central body and I'm going to bring it back over here. Now let's go ahead and unlock that background photo and we're just going to delete it. We don't need it anymore, right? I'm going to zoom out so you can kind of see. So this should look something like that. Here's the problem with this, is these are all individual little pieces. And you saw in the beginning, they should be just 3 different objects. The black, the green, the light yellow, or light green yellow. So we need to make sure that we're actually pushing and combining these together. So the easiest way to do this is we're going to make 3 copies of this. Remember, you hold down the Alt to make copies. Oops. I've got 3 copies of my moth. And what we're going to do here is we're going to make a black shape, a dark green shape, and a light green. So the way you do that is with the Shape Builder tool. It's actually not too difficult to do once you wrap your mind around it. So we're going to start first by selecting all of the objects, and we're going to grab that Shape Builder tool. We're just making all of these black, so all I have to do is just drag across all of my objects. I'm just dragging across. It's going to add them all together, all of these. Dragging one big shape. That's what I want. You may have to zoom in so that you can see all those little anchor points. Just dragging across. Okay, I've got all of mine deleted. You need to make sure that you've gotten all of the anchor points connected. So you might have to really zoom in to see some of those little teeny tiny ones, okay? So now that we have one solid shape, remember this is our black, so we're simply going to click on the shape and we're going to fill it black. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and scroll over. I'm going to zoom out just a smidge. We're going to do the same thing. So we're going to select all of the moth here. But what we need to do this is we got to get rid of the black. With each layer that stacks on top, you got to get rid of the layer, the color of the layer beneath it. Otherwise it covers it up and you can't see it. So how do you subtract using the shape builder? That's right, you're just going to use the Alt key. So with this, I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to click and drag and get rid of all of the black. We don't want any black. I want to get rid of any black that's in there that I would want to keep. Any black, because now that will show black. All right, but we want this solid green. So how do we make this solid green? Yeah, so now we just use the shape builder tool, but we don't hold down the Alt key anymore. And now we do the same thing we did before. We're going to make all of these one color. Take your time. Make sure you get everything in there. Okay, we got most of them. And don't worry if you have some kind of random dots. I'm going to show you what you can do with those in a second, but I feel like I've got most of it all in there. And then we're going to fill that with the dark green color. Now, let's double check it. Let's see if this is working. Let's stack that. Oops, I got to change my arrangement. That's okay. This is a nice review. I'm going to put that on top. Nice. Now, if I wanted that to be that solid green, I just wouldn't have deleted that, but I kind of like that. You can see that little smidgen through. And now you might get these random things that didn't quite, you can just delete those. You don't need those. I got a couple little random anchor points up here. Just delete them. All right, last one. All we got to do now is we got to deal with the yellow. But again, if I just grab the yellow, this isn't going to work. I have to make sure I've got my cutouts, remember? So we're going to select it. Grab that shape builder tool. We have to select whatever goes underneath it. So that means this time we got to select the black and the dark green. So I'm going to hold down my Alt key. I'm selecting the black, getting rid of any black, any dark green. I want to get rid of all of that dark green, all of that black. Oops. Hit Control Z if you messed up. I accidentally clicked on my light green. That's okay. Sometimes it's easy. You can just click because it's a big shape. Sometimes you got to click and drag. All right, we're going to say that that looks pretty good. I'm going to get rid of any weird random shapes in here. Now, because these might be 3 different ones, double check, make sure that they're not, I never dragged across, so I need to make sure I drag across that. And we're not going to combine these, but I do want to make sure that they're grouped together. So I'm going to hold down my shift, I'm going to click on this and hold down my shift. So I grab those 2 little dots, right click and group. So now this is one group. And that way if I move, aha, I've got some little underneath, I don't want those. We're going to delete those. And that was because of my arrangement. Okay, so now let's check. Let's stack that, see if that works. Oops. Let's drag our yellow on. Got to change the arrangement. That's okay. Depends on what copies we are working on. I probably should have worked right to left rather than left to right. And move that over to the side. And we've got our moth. If you have any questions, make sure you call me over. Now that you're done with this video, I did not tell you to save it, but hopefully you did save this in the cloud. Once it's saved, make sure that you, like I said, save in the cloud. Let's go ahead and save it as moth. Save it as moth and then put your name. And then let's make sure that you share this with me, okay? And then you're ready to start your drawing. When you do your drawing, keep it simple, 3 to 5 colors. And remember, white and black do count as a color. Good job, designers.